I did.
And we were looking at Ocean Springs events, and I guess this weekend coming up, they're going to be holding a huge downtown event. And I'm like, really? So soon? Oh well. Sorry you
We're not
can't
allowed
attend
to
it.
go off base still.
Yeah.
Thanks for rubbing.
Well, I'm not going anywhere. I have yet to be out of my house, and I'm enjoying it. I guess that's kind of glutton for punishment, but I enjoy doing this, staying at home and doing all the work from here.
Same.
I'm getting about, what is it, about 4 weeks per gallon on my car, so it really helps. All right, so hopefully you guys seen my message. Let's go ahead and pull up your first tech manual, which is the NSM tech manual. According to this, it should be the 31R2-2 TSC 179-2 extract. And let me go live here. Let me mute the window. And try to make it a little bit more palatable where you can see it. Okay, so can everybody see it?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
All right. So you'll notice I'm on 1.3 general function description. Now I'm just going to highlight everything that you can find in this tech order so you don't have to hop, skip, and jump all over the place when you're doing a control F function on it. So you notice that the first part right here, I've got it all highlighted, and it talks about multiplexing and demultiplexing. If it can multiplex, it should be able to do it in demultiplex, because it doesn't make any sense for you to encrypt the data that's going out and then receiving data that's encrypted but you don't have encryption. Makes no sense. So you'll notice that last highlighted portion says the MNC can be accessed either directly using the MNC protocol or through the GUI software. You guys are doing the GUI software in the NSM. So let's scroll down here to 1.3.1.4 control computer interface. You'll notice some of the stuff we've already gone over. You can see that we have an RS-232 or 422, not the 530, but you get the idea. DTE signals. Bravo also telling you about between the NSM, the DTE, and the control computer, which is also a DTE. We go over a little bit on Charlie with the GUI software. And I just wanted to show this little last part. The currently active configuration is also stored in NSM, so that when you power it up, it already applies that last configuration. That way you're not having to constantly reprogram every time you turn it off and turn it back on. This is where you're going to find the signaling formats and everything you need to know about those signaling formats. You can see the NRZ, which we've gone over that data. It is RS-422. You have the legacy mode, which is the older equipment, and enhanced is the newer equipment, and I just highlighted that for you. And to give you an idea that the 8448 kbps is the max data rate for NRZ. Then you have the T1E1. You'll notice that both of them say bipolar. However, you'll notice this one, AMI B8ZS, and I think this is the one where it will throw the bit violation on the 9th one. Down below here you have AMI, alternate mark inversion, HDB3, which throws a 0 at the 3rd 1. So you have this one, the way it states, it's the 9th 0. The way this one is stated, it's the 3rd 0. So you can see the differences in how they write it and how the bit violation is thrown. Again, those are the max data rates for that. Then you have CDI.
How is it you can understand where the violation is?
Okay, if you were to go on the internet and type in either one of these, it will tell you where the bit violation is thrown. And I got this off the internet. Now, I may have them confused where one is the other and the other is, it could be that the B8ZS, I'd have to look it up real quick, but I think that one is on the 9th 0. That's where the bit violation is. That's the way it is written. The HDB3, it's on the 3rd 0. That's the way it's written. That's how you can tell by the writing in there. Again, I went out on the internet, took a look at it, and at least that's what I can decipher from it. It takes some looking at 2 or 3 times just to figure out where that 0 is being thrown at.
Is that something we'll to dedicate to memory for the test?
No. This is just to give you an explanation on the signaling format. What are your concerns? Well, is it self-clocking? Is this particular style self-clocking? Okay, because it's bipolar with 0 suppression. Is it self-clocking?
Yes, it is.
Okay, there you go. Basic facts. We're not trying to get you to understand where the bit violation is. We're just trying to explain why it's called bipolar with 0 suppression as opposed to bipolar. See, if it just says AMI, which one is it? Is it the one with 0 suppression, or is it the one just bipolar? By the way it's written, tells us it is self-clocking. Do you need to know that this particular one is self-clocking? No, not really. You just need to know the differences between bipolar and bipolar 0 suppression, which one of those is self-clocking. Make sense now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we're not trying to get you guys to analyze it. We're just trying to get you guys to understand the basic facts. We go a little bit farther to give you the reason why it's this way. That's all. More knowledge is better as opposed to little knowledge. Okay, the next up you have group modem, which is the CDI. You can see again it has legacy and enhance, and I highlighted both the Macs for you. And then you see the HISI. You'll notice it says an EIA 530, which we've gone over, and the EIA, was that 613? That's the newer version. As you can see, some of our information that we go over, we cover the older style because they're still out there in the Air Force. And slowly but surely, they're being replaced with the newer stuff. So you have to be well versed with both. So with the HISI, you can see that I've got highlighted the 52,000 kbps or 52 meg, either way you want to say it. And then the last one, you'll notice the secure order wire data signals. I just wanted to point out, hey, this thing has order wire and it's unbalanced NRZ. What does that mean? It means it's a coax cable. If it said balanced, then it would be a twisted pair, wouldn't it? So these are things that we like to give you in the study guide workbook, so when you see them on this particular tech manual, hey, I got a clue now. All right, let's go down to purpose of the equipment. You'll notice it has a ton of stuff in here. It's just describing what it's going to do for you, and it has a really decent picture in giving you an idea how it's all going to be put together. You guys were in the lab. You should have seen all 3 boxes. You played with box A, if I'm not mistaken, which has the NSM in it. So the NSM is tied to the SATCOM, and then it shoots up to the satellite and then back down and gets demultiplexed at the other NSM. This gives you an overview. I wanted to highlight this picture so if you ever get confused, the picture's worth 1,000 words. Shows you the ports, the number of ports, and what they are. And if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in this tech manual says you cannot mix and match these ports. You can't have 5 NRZ with 2 hissies. It's not going to work that way. It's either 12 NRZs, or it's going to be 2 hissies, or it's going to be 6 T1E1s, or it's going to be 6 CDI. It can't be a mix and match of those different ports. I wanted to show you this part, the network configuration, because this is probably the best description of what you can see with the nodal ideas that are happening that's out there. You got the point-to-point, the hub, the mesh, the hybrid, just to give you an overview of what's happening. Nothing more, nothing less. Then I just highlighted the 2.3.3.1 balanced. Where have you heard balanced before? NRZ, which is the EIA 530. And as you can see, the difference between a balanced and unbalanced on that last NRZ just goes to show you what are you using it for. So the next one is a T1E1, which is a 6 bipolar interfaces. Then you got CDI, and then the hissy again. And we're not even out of 2 yet. Just wanted to point out, yeah, we have an order wire. You'll notice that this is the back of the NSM. There are no lights on it, but when you get down into the front of the NSM, that's where all your lights are, because that is going to tell you whether or not you had an error, whether or not it's working properly. It just gives you a plethora. That's that visual alarms, I guess you could say, or visual indications of whether or not it's working or it's not. So just going through the highlights on that one. And this is what you've seen when we started looking at, hey, this is what we're going to do for the GUI, graphical user interface. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, the first part of what you see before you go into the multiple tabs. Any questions on the NSM and where to look for this stuff? Long weekend, huh? All of 2 days. All right.
It's very short. I don't know what happened to it.
Hey, we got a long one coming up.
We gotta pass Block 7 first.
That's true. You guys are testing out Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay. We're going to be doing a review Wednesday. I haven't figured out what time. I just need to get with you at the end of today sometime to figure out when would be the best for you guys. So put that in the back of your mind. Let's pull up the TISR or the Jerk 239 tech order. I'll wait a second while I'm drinking my caffeine. Anybody not have it pulled up? And can you see this?
I can see it.
Okay. Are we waiting on anybody?
Negative.
All right, let's go. All right, you'll notice I'm in Chapter 1, General Information. You can probably look through the general purpose of the equipment description, you know, just to get an overview, because you guys are going to be working on the TISR starting tomorrow. The one place that I am very passionate about in showing you, when I say passionate, is you got to listen to these words, is 1.3.1 types of traffic. This is where you can find it. I'm going to get this to where you understand it. You'll see this first segment right here, 3 volt peak to peak conditioned diphase waveform. That is CDI. And you can see it ranges from 0.072 to 4.608 megabits per second. That's your first indication of where to find your signaling format in CDI. And of course, it just gives you an overview of the analog and digital voice order wire. The second or the third one that is highlighted, the radio set Jerk 239 can also carry 6.144 megabits per second pseudo NRZ. This is the only place in the tech order that you will see the word pseudo. It is assumed that you read the chapter 1 and when you start working on this equipment. The manufacturer, because these were printed out tech orders, by not putting that one word in there, supposedly they saved close to, I think it's $10,000 on paper copies, all because of one word. Back in the day, it cost money to print. Now, what does it cost? Very little to nothing to do an update on a digital format. Well, again, back when they made this, there was no such thing as a digital format at that time. So it just gives you an idea of the older equipment versus the newer equipment. You probably will see pseudo all over the place if it's the new digital version, which there isn't. They're phasing this out. We're going to something called a P2P. Everything that you have in here is transferable over to the P2P. It's a pretty nice piece of equipment. It's just newer technology. They still have the Jerk 239 out in the Air Force, but they're slowly phasing it out. I think there's 2 squadrons now that still have the TISR, so you may end up going to one of them. All right, next up, I just wanted to show you down on the typical deployments, lightweight. You've got a mast, a tripod, and a pole system that you can put this on. Radio accessories, you'll notice that they talk about a jumper cable that is 2 foot long. It's not in this particular paragraph, it's further down the line, but it just gives you an idea that you can separate the baseband assembly from the RF assembly up to 150 feet. The jumper cable's only 2 foot and it can be assembled on the tripod. If you wanted to separate the RF assembly from the baseband unit, you can. And using that 150 feet, what that means is you can put the baseband assembly in a tent and connect up the multiplexer right to it. If not, then you would have to put the baseband unit somewhere, either on the tripod or close to the RF assembly. Bottom line is you only have 150 feet to use that assembly. Wanted to point out that we went over the IF frequency last week. Well, here's the first inkling of where you see 70 megahertz for an IF frequency. There are 2 different types of antenna dishes, which are the 1 foot and the 2 foot. It also comes with the waveguides that are either 1 foot or 2 foot. And you can see the mass assembly and how crazy it can be put up. I'm not going to go through that. You guys can just kind of go, just casually look through it. 1.4, equipment configurations. And this is where it gets really important. Number 2, when it is deployed with the 1 foot diameter antenna, it can be attached to the RF assembly atop a 50-foot mast. That's the mast that comes with it if you're going to use it. Notice it does not say 2 foot diameter antenna. In other words, the 2 foot antenna can be applied to number 3 and number 4. Number 3 says a tripod. Number 4 says it's on a pole mount. A pole mount is a lot more sturdier than the mast. I think the wind rating on the mast, when you have all 4 sets of guy ropes on it, 4, not 3 sets, 4 sets, I think the wind rating, was about 70, miles per hour. That's it. Why? Because if you put a 2-foot dish on it, you're probably going to break the mast whenever you get a good strong wind. So when you look at the mast, or that's all you can put on it is the 1-foot antenna, not the 2-foot. The 2-foot can be put on either a pole or the tripod assembly. And you guys can casually go through this. I'm just looking for the next highlight.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
When you say mast, are you talking about CMT-15, or is it?
That is correct.
It's on mast.
Okay. You'll notice that in block 4, some of them said CTM-15, the others said Jerk 239. Why? Because we actually utilized some of the 239 mast in block 4. We just didn't have that many. So CTM-15 and 239 are interchangeable when it comes to the mast. They're both the same. What is different between when it comes in the cases? Well, it comes with, I think, 2 extra sets of cables to put out 4 sets of guy ropes. It comes with longer stakes, about the 2-foot stakes, not the 1-foot stakes that you get when you deployed out in block 4. It also comes with a mount for the RF assembly that goes on top of the mast. Now, I don't know about you, but I would never try to extend the CTM that high, the full 55 feet, because I don't think it's going to be able to handle it with the RF assembly on it. Has it been done in this course? Yes, several times. It's when we get classes around 6 or 7 people, we can do that just to show them ahead of time that it can be done. So yes, the CTM is that classification. They just put it in the Tisser Tech order.
And will we do that at block 10?
Negative. Have you tried lifting 20 pounds on top of a CTM 15?
I've raised it. I don't remember how much it weighed. But
Yeah. Well, I think the CTM is about 30 pounds total. Add another 20 pounds on top of it. Now, you guys raised the mast when you had the AT-197 on it, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and it was tough getting it up. Just double the weight on that AT-197, if not triple. I think it's the RF assembly is 20 pounds. I could be wrong, but it's somewhere in there. I'd have to look it up in the tech order here. We'll probably come across it. I would probably extend the darn thing up maybe halfway. That's where I would be comfortable. Okay, this is what the baseband assembly looks like. There are 5 LRUs in it. Even though there's 4 sections in here, right here, the power assembly actually has a breaker panel in it also. So that's where the 5th assembly is. So there's the power supply module and the breaker panel assembly all in one right here. Everything else is a individual LRU. Line replaceable unit, if you're asking about that. Here it is. The mast is capable of supporting the RF assembly with the 1-foot diameter antenna and wind speeds up to 70 miles an hour, and is designed to use under adverse conditions. There is a, when they say adverse conditions, there's a, it goes on the face of the RF assembly. It's a protection unit. Water resistant. I don't want to say waterproof, because just as soon as you say waterproof, water gets in it, and there you go. Let's see here. Capabilities and limitations, which is 1.7. There is a table, 1-2, that gives you the frequency, the output power, and then goes into each assembly. You got the RF assembly versus the baseband assembly. Shows you the antennas. Now I want to point out a thing on this, and you'll see that this sign in front of the 10 miles, that is less than 10 miles. You'll see that there's another sign in front of the 25 miles. That is a less than 25 miles. And you can see that the RF assembly, when it goes out the RF assembly, you are at 25 dBm. When you attach the 1 foot, it goes from 25 to 31 dB. If you attach the RF assembly to the 2 foot, it goes to 37 dB. So get that kind of put in your head. If they're asking for the RF assembly, it's the 316 milliwatts, 25 dBm. But just as soon as, and it proves too about antenna gain. So the first one gives you 6 dB, the other one gives you what, 12 dB a gain? So that's pretty significant coming out of the RF assembly. And
Excuse me, sir. How is it you're able to tell the two?
how am I able to tell the two? Explain that again. Or
Yes, sir. Because you're talking about how with the 1 foot antenna, this applies, but with the 2 foot antenna, this applies. And I don't see how you got that exact
okay.
number.
All right. When you're coming out the RF assembly, you see where I'm pointing at the RF assembly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You see that this says plus 25 dBm at 316 milliwatts.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you attach the 1 foot parabolic with the 1 foot waveguide.
I actually see it now. Yeah, 1 foot parabolic, 2 foot parabolic. I was just being dumb. Sorry.
No. Get it explained now, because on the test it's too late. I'd rather you ask all your questions here than get in the test room and go, sir, I don't, not a good thing.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome. Anybody else has any question, they need to speak up. There's a 2 foot jumper cable, just to prove to you that there is one. When you get into the lab, you're going to see 3 cases. One is the baseband and RF assembly. It's a metal case. Please do not drop it. Everybody's having problems now with the baseband or the RF assembly because when you drop it, and when I say the case itself or the assembly, let the instructor know. Because then they're going to go, well, all right, let's try it and see if the card bounced out of it. And they can make the assumption at that point. But inside there are LRUs, and if they are, dropped or whatever, they will come out of that slot, and then your RF assembly or your baseband assembly will not work. Not coming out to where you can physically take it, but behind those little sections that I just shown you. All right, we look at installation procedures. When we are doing our setups, you'll see that with 2 or more persons, we should have less than an hour. If you're setting up the mast, it will be 4. And if you're setting it up with a pole, it's a little bit different because you may need to get a cherry picker. Depends on how high up the pole that you're going. It may be a telephone pole. You may need to get the equipment or a qualified person that has climbing experience up there. You just can't go and do it by yourself, normally when it's a pole. With the tripod, even though our time is 1 hour in the tech order, we will have you do it within 30 minutes. And that's putting it, installing it, and going through all the procedures. It's a half hour. When you get out into the block 10 area, it goes from a half an hour to one person setting it up in 15 minutes. There's some caveats to that. When you're in block 7, 2 persons, and you're going through it with each of you, pretty soon you start gathering up speed, and you should be able to do it in about 15 minutes. With block 10, it's 2 people, which is 1 person per pieces of equipment, but you're doing everything inside, making sure all the connections, all the frequencies, and everything else, you go through it. So all you got to do is go outside and set it up, make contact, and you're golden. Most of the time, you guys will set it up between 5 to 7 minutes out in block 10. So you can see the progress of prepping versus what you see here. Now, they're taking 1 man-hour for everything. That's to include hooking it up to a multiplexer, checking everything out, making sure that you have good communication to the distant antenna. Here, you're probably going to be maybe 100 feet apart versus out there in the field, you're going to be anywhere between 2 to 5 miles apart. Maybe further. So it just depends on the situation as far as the time is concerned. So I'm just letting you know, probably about a half an hour to 15 minutes is typical for your setups in block 7. And this gives you an idea how everything is set up. And you can see that tripod mounted, 1 or 2 foot, just pointing it out again. Here's where the 2 foot gets applied again. When you are out there, just listen to what the instructor is asking you to do. If he's asking you to set up the baseband assembly 150 foot away, that's your cue to get the 150 foot cable out. It's a bear to wind up, but pretty easy to unwind it. Chapter 4. Turning to 4.3.1.3, setting the frequency. This section right here, which is the operation, what we did is we took it out of here and put it in a quick book for you guys, so you don't have to be fumbling through a massive amount of tech order here. But what I wanted to point out here, it says rotate the 4 transmit frequency thumb wheel switches to the desired transmit frequency between 14.4 and 15.25. You'll notice that the first the 10 gigahertz selection, there is no selection for it. Why? Because that number doesn't change. You'll notice on the front panel assembly, the 1 is embossed on the case. There is no thumb wheel setting. The 1s for gigahertz, the 1's gigahertz, has either 1 or 2 selections, or either selection. It's either going to be a 4 or a 5. If you get into the tester lab and you try to set the 4 or 5 to the 1, and you are able to do that, you just broke it. There's a pin on the inside that is supposed to keep it from going beyond 4 or below 4 or above 5. If you're flipping that to a 1, let the instructor know, hey, there's a problem. We've had way too many of those break. All right, here is your thumb wheels. You got to receive on the top and transmit on the bottom. Let me tell you, everybody goes thinking that the receive, they end up putting the transmit frequencies in here, not realizing that this is a receive frequency. You can see that the 1 is embossed right here. Also for the transmit frequency, which means this one and this one can only do can either do a 4 or a 5. The other 3 can do from 0 to 9. I want to point out this part right here on the RF assembly. This knob right here adjusts this frequency. You have 2 frequencies for receiver to program in. You have the actual frequency that you want to select, and then this is considered a pre-selector for receive. So please, when you are putting in your frequencies for the RF assembly, always remember receive is on top and you got 2 to adjust, and transmit's on the bottom. Let's go to table 4-1, which is the RF assembly controls and indicators, which we just shown you on the front panel. And what I just explained about the 1, it's right here. And also what I explained about the 4 and the 5 is also in here. Anytime that you go outside of the frequency range, because you can do that, there's this little thing called a summary alarm will indicate, as well as a channel error will indicate. So it just gives you an idea that you got some issues if you can see both of those. And what do I mean about the summary alarm and the channel error light? Well, let's go up here. You see these two? There's your channel error light and there's your summary alarm. If those things are on, you got problems. Channel error is pretty easy. You just look up here at the dials here and make sure that your cut sheet is put in accordingly. Summary alarm is just telling you, hey, something's wrong between the RF assembly and the baseband assembly. Here's your baseband assembly and everything you need to know as to what it's for and what happens when one goes off or another goes off. You have 2 pages of this. So you get table 4-1 is your RF assembly. Table 4-2 is your baseband assembly. And what does it look like? There's your baseband assembly. And you can see we have a plethora of lights. You have a meter. Meter's also on the RF assembly. Now, there's 2 places that I want to caution you about. One of them is this one right here, right above the meter. It says standby operate. Let me explain that. Standby means you're getting ready to transmit. Operate means you are in transmit. Before you power this thing on, it even says it in the tech order, and I have seen this on many occasions, where it will still be in the operate and they're trying to do a loop back, which is supposed to be in a standby configuration. So what that means is you could get in front of that antenna and not even realize that you are being radiated. The next one is this on and off switch. It is a typical switch, metal. You will need some force to put it in the on position to get that light, your power light, to illuminate. If it doesn't, you're going to end up tripping the breaker right here. You'll feel it. You'll be going, well, why didn't that light? Turn it back in the off position like you would your circuit breaker in the house. Flip it back in the off position and give it a forceful up motion to turn it on. And all of 4 is just giving you this section right here, which is the operate, and putting it in the operational mode. You'll go through that when you get into lab. The next one is called the theory of operation. With this one, we're going to be going over it in the last part of 4 Charlie. We'll be going through each one of the diagrams, and every bit of this that you see, here's the diagrams, is we're going to go through transmit first and then receive second. The reason why we do it is because there are some items that gets used in both transmit and receive. We have order wire configuration and loop back testing. These two are probably the quickest that you'll ever see as far as briefing you on what the tech order is giving us. So we're going to go through that probably in the afternoon section. Any questions on the Tisser Jerk 239?
So the frequency range on the Tisser is between 14 gigahertz and 15 gigahertz. Well, obviously not those exact values, but
Right.
when it says 14, that's gigahertz.
Yes. You're in the
Okay, thank you.
gigahertz. You are in wideband at that point. You're up there in scale. The antenna is highly directional. Got a lot of gain on it. Well, you can see that the gain, 6 dB on one and 12 dB on another. That's pretty significant. Any other questions?
Will we ever have to change the dish on the Tisser ever, like in our career or something?
Well, if you still have it, you will probably be required to change the dish at one form or another, especially when you're practicing.
Okay.
Have I tried it? Yeah, it's fun. Okay, can everybody see my objective up here?
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure that I got it in
Affirmative.
right. Okay, let's pull up our slides and follow along, if you would, please. We're looking at 4 Charlie, identify basic facts about the characteristics of the Tropo satellite support radio, better known as the Jerk 239, or the AN/GRC-239. Well, it's a very good possibility you're going to play with this thing, especially in this course, and play with it in Block 10. The idea is to get you familiarized with line of sight wideband. There are some other items out in the field that you may come across, which is the RF mod. That got phased out, even though it was better at their capabilities, but it just could not handle the deployment. It would break on numerous occasions. We're going to be looking at the purpose, operating characteristics, types of traffic, equipment, and signal flow. Signal flow we're going to be looking at this afternoon at 1 o'clock showing. So what is it? Well, I just showed you in Chapter 1 the purpose of it. It is designed for quick deployments. I'm not sure if it is lightweight because, you know, if you carry in 3 cases, and by the way, on all the cases there should be a 2-person lift. Do not get caught lifting it by yourself unless it's empty. That's a different story. If you're going to be tackling that equipment, make sure that there's 2 of you doing it. There are ways to do it, even though that there's only 1 of you when you get out in Block 10. It's called slide it off the wagon or buggy, and then you can pull the stuff out. This is the frequency range of 14.4 to 15.25 gigahertz, like you just asked. The power is plus 25, and depending on which antenna, it goes up further. Its IF frequency is 70 megahertz, max range, and that's with the 2-foot antenna, is less than 25 miles. It has CDI and pseudo NRZ. It's either analog or digital voice or wire. Has 2 assemblies. And you'll notice on the tripod here, we have the dish and a baseband assembly. If you look in the top right-hand corner of my OBS software, you will see a tripod with a 1-foot dish with the 1-foot antenna waveguide and the RF assembly. The baseband unit is not attached to it yet. There is, as you can see, the baseband assembly can be put either in a 19-inch rack on a flat surface or a tripod, because it's going to need the multiplexer to be attached to it. And then you're going to have, for the RF assembly, it can go on one of the 3. 50-foot mast can only have the 1-foot antenna. The tripod and the pole can have both antennas. When I say both, that's the 1-foot and the 2-foot. The baseband assembly is a little bit better colored copy here. You have the order wire, and you can see down at the bottom here, underneath the meter, it says OW. That means order wire. XMTR, which is a transmitter. RCVR is a receiver, and this particular panel is obviously the power panel with the breaker panel. This switch right here is really important. Make sure that it is in standby prior to powering it up. You don't want to go ahead and put it in transmit, which is operate. That would be a bad thing. We have an RF assembly. You can see that the ones are embossed on the front panel, and you can adjust the last 3 on the gigahertz panel here. You can adjust this one, the far left, either on a 5 or a 4. Comes with a 1 or 2-foot antenna. You'll see it when you open up the box. You'll have the 2-foot antenna on the lid and the 1-foot antenna on the bottom. The reason they did that was so they could put the cables and the stakes on the bottom portion. This connects to the baseband assembly either on the tripod or somewhere else. It can be attached with the 2-foot cable or the 150-foot cable. This last one, when we went over the frequency diversity, this is where it comes into play. You have to be 200 megahertz apart. Any closer, you're going to run into some traffic issues with how wide your bandpass is. Because when you're transmitting FM, and FM is what we discussed and what is transmitting out of the tisser, it takes up a lot of space in the frequency realm. Again, we're emphasizing the 1 and 2-foot antennas. Here is the same information that I pulled out of the tech order, the 1-foot and the 2-foot. And then we have the signal flow. We have transmit path, receive path, standby loop back, and order wire. Is there any questions up to this point?
Earlier, when you're saying like the boxes or whatever that you have to, like the 2-man lists, are you referring to the RF assembly, or are you referring to like the NSM50, the 3 boxes of that?
Okay. When you pack up the NSM, it has the 2-foot, the 2-person lift on the boxes itself. If you turn them on the side or look hard enough, they're there. With the tisser, okay, the RF assembly and the baseband assembly come in a metal case with all the, like the 1 foot, the 2 foot jumper cable along with the headset, handset, and the power cord. It's a metal case that both of those are put into, and it's a 2-person lift.
Okay.
Your antennas, where it has the 1 and 2 foot, also pretty huge case, 2 people to lift it. Your tripod, same with that too, because the case is oblong, and man, is it a pain in the butt to, if you put that thing in there wrong, it's a problem to open or close with it. And it is quite cumbersome. I'll think of the right word in a minute. Heck with it, but it's really weird on how you have to lift the tripod case. Excuse me. Without 2 persons, awkward. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. The tripod case is awkward if you were trying to be 1 person to do it. What comes in the tripod case? Well, the tripod itself, the head pan tilt assembly, and what we call the pan, which is where the baseband and the RF assembly sit on in order to put them together. And I think that one is about 40 pounds, but the way it's made and put into the box is just awkward to pick up. So that's the reason why they got 2-person lift on it. But the heaviest one is the RF assembly. The RF assembly baseband metal case. I'd probably say it's about 45, 50 pounds easily. Just don't lift it by yourself. Any questions? Now, when we do signal flow, does everybody have, or did everybody download their C's and D's? Because we're getting ready to go over them. Anybody not download their C's and D's? Because you're going to need it for this afternoon. Because it's going to take about an hour and a half to go through the C's and D's. All right. Any comments that you guys want to make before I turn you loose? I do have one thing. With your schedule doing lab, I was looking at doing Wednesday. When would be a good time to do the review?
I don't know. I'd say like after lunch, maybe 1300.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all done in the morning, aren't we?
I agree with that.
Everybody at 1 o'clock or 1300 on Wednesday afternoon. The only thing that I ask is take a look at your scheduling and see if anybody might be continued on, because I think that would, well, wait a minute. You guys are only doing your practices and you'll do your PCs in the afternoon on Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The final group should be done at 11.
Okay. So,
and if they're not, usually they'll finish it around like after lunch or 12, so they'll still have time.
okay. Well, that makes sense. So Wednesday at 1300 we'll do a review. If anybody sees that we're going to have somebody that might be absent, please message me and we'll go from there. All right, we'll see you guys at 1 o'clock today to go over the last part of our Season Ds, and we pretty much covered 5 alpha, if I'm not mistaken. That was the tech orders. All right, we'll see you this afternoon. Take care.
Sir,
Have a nice lunch.